I got it. Like a crack addict. Steve did it, and I'm with it. Mm, Back over here with the politics. Show you some LA takeover. I used to go all the time. I heard it too. I ain't gonna lie. It's the funniest shit in the world. No cap. It's the funniest shit in the world.
Welcome to Hood Politics. Episode I will be discussing takeovers. The facts of the case are as follows. LA has always loved car culture. Sunday nights on Crenshaw Boulevard to cruising down Whittier Boulevard, racing down Avenue has always been a place for gather and enjoy the culture. But in more recent years, another genre has become popular, the takeover.
A dangerous street takeover in South LA last night. A large crowd watched as several cars drifted, did donuts, and lit fireworks in the middle of intersections.
This morning, hundreds of racers take over a Compton intersection. This was at Wilmington and Caldwell at around 2 this morning. It reportedly took sheriff's deputies more than half an hour to respond.
More street takeovers hit South LA streets overnight. This scene at midnight near Century and Figueroa. Several people blocked the intersection while drivers did donuts, and as you can see there, passengers even hanging out of the window. Not too safe. The group then moved to the corner of Hooper and Gage to continue their antics here.
More dangerous takeovers on the streets.
Hell, that's the only thing I don't think. 2012, 2013, 14. We didn't have fireworks. The only fireworks they was using, yeah, they wasn't fireworks.
Of South LA overnight, a series of sideshows drew nearly 500 spectators just before midnight. Vehicles were seen swinging around the crowd, at times getting alarmingly close to.
And like over time, they made it into a circus. The circus over.
Onlookers. Others launched fireworks, and at least one person was seen shooting flames into the air. LA County deputies arrived an hour later, but people blocked out authorities as cars continued with reckless stunts.
Takeovers occur when a large group of people shut down an intersection and use the area for burnouts, donuts, and street races. The events are coordinated through social media and draw anywhere from dozens to thousands of attendees. Takeovers exploded in popularity during the pandemic. The empty streets, in addition to people wanting to get out of the house and have some fun, created the perfect atmosphere for takeovers to thrive. Initially, the events would go off without a hitch. People would show up, hang out, and disperse after a few hours or whenever law enforcement arrived. But as time went on, takeovers became more and more dangerous. There have been multiple brawls, hit and runs, carjackings, robberies, and shootings at the takeovers, and police said anytime they broke one up, they would recover multiple guns, drugs, and stolen cars. Law enforcement have taken numerous measures to stop them, such as placing speed bumps in intersections, performing mass arrests, towing vehicles, and even using videos of the takeovers to track down participants. But that did little to stop the events, and in the summer of 2020, people got to witness how dangerous takeovers could be.
You over here and tell me I tap the car? I'm from the open area, nigga. I'm not even lying. You tap the car, that's the real shit. You down to do some shit like that? You down to do
On Saturday, July 25th, 2020, there was a large takeover at the intersection of Hollywood Boulevard and Highland Avenue in Hollywood. Hundreds of people flooded the area to watch the show. As cars did donuts in the intersection, a 33-year-old man named Ramon Monreal started tapping them with his hand as they spun by. A man named Daniel approached Ramon and told him to stop tapping the cars because it was dangerous to be that close. Ramon from the Bay Area, which is credited as the birthplace of takeovers, but there, they call them sideshows. He explained that in the Bay Area, tapping cars during sideshows is a sign of respect. The conversation grew heated, and Ramon lifted his shirt and showed a gun in his waistband. He then grabbed it and put a bullet in the chamber. Daniel's friend, Edward, was standing nearby and punched Ramon in the face. He fell to the ground and another person kicked him. They then attempted to grab the gun, but Ramon opened fire. The scene was in chaos as people ran and ducked for cover. Ramon then ran to his car and fled the scene. 911 was called, and police and paramedics made their way to the intersection. They found a 17-year-old young woman named Alejandra Estrada lying on the sidewalk. She had been hit in the head and was pronounced dead at the scene. She was an innocent bystander and was just enjoying the show when she was hit by a stray bullet. Edward was driven to the hospital by friends. He had been hit twice, once in his groin area and once in the thigh, but luckily he survived. Detectives arrived at the scene and began their investigation. While most attendees fled before they arrived, a few stayed behind to give their accounts of the incident and descriptions of the shooter. Investigators then learned that a video of the shooting had made its way to social media. It gave them a full scope of the events leading to the shooting and a shot of the suspect. A few hours later, at around 3:45 a.m., sheriff's deputies responded to a call in the city of Carson. As they arrived at the intersection of 223rd and Figueroa Streets, they encountered Ramon. The call was unrelated to the shooting, but Ramon was taken into custody. Once sheriffs learned of the shooting, they contacted homicide detectives and told them they had the suspect in custody. Ramon was then handed over to detectives and formally charged with murder for the death of Alejandra Estrada and the attempted murder of Edward, as well as great bodily harm and gun enhancement charges. His bail was set at $5 million. He later pled not guilty. During the trial, the prosecutor called Ramon confrontational and reckless. She said he was the aggressor during the incident and it's completely his fault that Alejandra was killed. Ramon took the stand and testified that the shooting was committed in self defense. He said at the time of the shooting, he and his fiancee were visiting California from Texas and went to Hollywood to have dinner. He parked his car near the intersection of Hollywood and Highland and took his gun because he always carries it with him. Ramon's carrying license was valid in Texas and Florida, but not in California. Ramon said as he and his fiancee walked the street, they stumbled across the takeover, and he tapped the cars as they spun by because they were getting too close to the curb. A few moments later, Daniel approached him and said, "Don't do that, it's not cool." He asked Daniel who he was, and Daniel replied that he was in charge. Edward then approached him and said, "You keep doing that, we'll fuck you up." Ramon said he apologized and told him that he meant no disrespect, but Daniel kept antagonizing him and threatened to kill him. So he pulled his gun from a concealed holster, pointed it towards the ground, and racked it. Ramon testified that he had served in the Coast Guard and was trained to de escalate and take control of a situation by cocking a gun. He said the gun did get Daniel's attention and he began holstering it when someone hit him, causing him to black out for a few seconds. And when he came to, he was on the ground getting punched and kicked. He says someone reached for his gun, and according to his Coast Guard training, when someone tries to take your weapon, it's considered a gun grab and you're authorized to shoot. Ramon said he believed he fired his gun into the air, and afterwards, he fled the scene to get away from the guys that were attacking him. The prosecutor said Ramon's version of events made no sense and were just a poor attempt of escaping accountability. The video of the incident showed that he was the aggressor and reached for his gun, not because he was threatened, but because he was angry and felt disrespected. And even while holding the gun, he continued antagonizing Daniel, which is contrary to his story of pulling his gun to calm things. Ultimately, Ramon was found guilty of murder for the death of Alejandra Estrada and the attempted murder of Edward, as well as great bodily harm and gun enhancement charges. Ramon Monreal was sentenced to 32 years to life in prison. Many believe that Alejandra's murder will put an end to the takeovers or at least slow them down, but they continue to get bigger and more destructive, with law enforcement calling them riots on wheels. Large crowds travel from intersection to intersection throughout the night while destroying property and looting businesses.
It's an unbelievable sight as a flash mob bursts into a 7-Eleven and start looting the store. One 7-Eleven clerk watches helplessly as the unruly mob pile into the store. Without a worry in the world, the brazen looters grab everything in sight. Cookies, candy, chips, just about every item of merchandise. LAPD says about 100 young people joined in the 1 a.m. chaos. They had been taking part in what's being called an illegal street takeover, where motorists had flooded the intersection to block off traffic.
You know, the unaliving people, that was out. Like it was that takeover was for peace national day. Now the 2020 stuff, that was a crazy, wild incident. That wasn't even supposed to happen. He was supposed to have a good night watching that takeover. Probably got checked and like, you're not from out here. Just like keep on about your business. Like, all right, I got checked. I still got blood on me. Me and my lady safe. That's how that was supposed to happen. So you feel me? my condolences and grace to the families who lost their, they loved ones in that situation. But these situations, these like, I'm not saying they good, but this is like it's better than that. You feel me? It's harmless kid shit. I see some grown ass niggas in here that don't need to be taking like you don't need to be taking shit. Like that's kid shit. It's like after the party type shit, they don't get out high schooler shit. Like you feel me? Y'all all got cars, gang. Y'all grouping up on the 7-Eleven. I don't know, it's young drivers out here, so they probably is high school. But I'm just saying, the grown nigga, I could have went in there and bought y'all shit, but y'all did wrong.
But this lawless bunch took it further and overtook the store.
A mob swarms the Arco station on Alondra and Central in Compton after a vandal breaks open a door. Then it's a free-for-all. You see some looters with their faces covered, others not even bothering concealing their identity as they ransack the store. They grab everything from booze to what some would consider essential items. This happened around 2:30 Sunday morning. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department says thousands of dollars worth of merchandise was stolen. Deputies say the mob was part of a crowd that had gathered for a street takeover.
It was just before 4 a.m. as people were doing donuts in the intersection. Dozens of others decided to break into the AutoZone, smashing the glass on the door, and then with their bare hands ripping open a metal fence on the inside, smashing display cases, looting, vandalizing, getting away with anything they could carry. Many of the stolen items dropped as they ran away.
Security video showing a white Kia repeatedly slamming into the door of Reuben's Bakery in Compton. Video, a mob of people looting the popular location. Investigators saying this all began with a street takeover outside the business.
Reuben's Bakery is a family-owned business serving Compton for 48 years.
No tienen control. They're out of control, says one customer, referring to the street takeovers in Compton. The intersection in front of the bakery shows leftover traces of the fire. The takeover crowd began before breaking into the bakery.
Nowhere was safe from the takeovers. Streets, parking lots, industrial areas, and freeways were all fair game. Even LA's newly renovated $600 million 6th Street Bridge became a hotspot. With takeovers came police. This led to some gangs banning them from their territory. In one video, a takeover was being held at the intersection of Normandy and Manchester Avenue in 8 Trey Gangster Crip territory. One of the members can be heard telling the crowd to leave, but they didn't move. He then fired a fully automatic gun into the air and cleared the crowd. In another video, a takeover was being held at the intersection of 63rd Street and Crenshaw Boulevard in Rolling 60 Crip territory. A member can be seen yelling at attendees, telling them to shut it down.
Take this shit somewhere else. I'm asking, I'm telling. Take this shit somewhere else. Please. Take this shit somewhere else, please. Hey, bring that shit in. Shut this shit up, bring it in. Come on now, right now. Hurry up. Bring that shit in somewhere else. I'm gonna make the lead. I'm gonna make the lead. Roll this right now. I'm asking, I'm telling you. They all come in. Y'all had a great time. I love it. I had a great time. Hey, y'all had a great time. All cameras down. All cameras down. All cameras down. Take it somewhere else, please. We on that. We on that. Y'all messed up my spot. Yeah, no, we on that. I made money.
It's all respect, it's all respect.
Alejandra's murder wasn't the first takeover-related death, and sadly, it wasn't the last. On the night of Saturday, November 13th, 2021, there was a takeover at the intersection of Pine Street and Bullis Road in Compton. Among the attendees was a 19-year-old man named Javier Menchaca and his friend, 22-year-old Juan Orozco. As
Two weirdos that wasn't supposed to go outside. I don't even know what's about to happen, but they about to say some tragic stuff.
the two sat in their SUV watching the event, someone approached them and opened fire multiple times. The crowd scattered and fled the scene. When
I apologize. I apologize. Why it looked like they went to jail? didn't know they. I'm gonna apologize to families. Hey,
Police arrived.
well, you
The
keep.
SUV was the only vehicle still at the scene, and when they approached it, they discovered Javier and Juan's bodies inside. A $50,000 reward was offered for information leading to the killer's arrest, but Javier and Juan's murders remain unsolved. On the night of Sunday, June 12th, 2022, there was a takeover at the intersection of Well Street and Wilmington Avenue in Compton. At around 11:40, a man named Trayshawn was driving home. He was traveling around 50 miles per hour and had a green light as he drove through the intersection. Moments later, a red Honda pulled out in front of him, causing a crash. Trayshawn was shaken up. He unbuckled his seatbelt, got out of his car, and saw a large group of people in the street. A man exited the driver's seat of the Honda and fled the scene. The body of an 18-year-old woman named Jennifer Flores was found inside the car, and the body of a 20-year-old woman named Michelle Gonzalez was found lying on the street. She had been hanging out the window of the Honda during the crash and was ejected from the vehicle. City officials and law enforcement said there wasn't a takeover at the time of the crash, but neighbors insist there was and say there's one nearly every weekend at the intersection. On the night of Sunday, August 14th, 2022, a 15-year-old young man named Joshua Montez was attending a takeover, along with his friends and girlfriend, at the intersection of 135th Street and Avalon Boulevard. Just before midnight, gunfire erupted. Joshua was hit twice. The crowd scattered and fled the scene, including his friends and girlfriend. A nurse who lived nearby and two passersby went to Joshua's aid and applied pressure to his wounds. 911 was called, and police and paramedics took over 30 minutes to arrive. He was then transported to the hospital, where he underwent emergency surgery. As the night went on and Joshua still hadn't made it home, his grandmother called his phone and a police officer answered. He told her that Joshua had been shot and was in critical condition at the hospital. A few hours later, Joshua Montez was pronounced dead. On Christmas night, 2022, there was a takeover at the intersection of Crenshaw Boulevard
That's
and Florence
crazy. Like,
Avenue. There were over 100 people present. Among the attendees was
okay,
a
baby.
24-year-old woman named Eliza Oaxaca. At around 9 p.m., a Chevy
Okay,
Camaro was
baby.
doing donuts in the intersection when the driver lost control and crashed into a nearby tow truck that was providing blockage for the event. The Camaro then spun into a crowd of spectators. The driver exited the car and fled the scene. Eliza had been standing nearby during the crash and was hit by the Camaro. She was transported to the
Crazy
hospital where
idea.
she was
You gonna
pronounced
take over
dead.
that?
Eliza was a nursing student and loved cars. She fell in love with car culture after seeing The Fast and the Furious and would always go to car meets and other events. Detectives arrived at the scene and began their investigation. They impounded the Camaro and tracked down the tow truck driver and impounded the truck. Surveillance video from a gas station at the intersection showed numerous people limping and being helped to their cars after the crash, but none of them reported the accident or made themselves known to detectives. A few days later, investigators announced a $50,000 reward for information leading to the Camaro driver's arrest, and the tips began pouring in. They then received the name of the suspect. He was a 28-year-old man named Dante Chappell Young. Detectives learned that he went on the run after the crash and tracked him through multiple cities in Southern California, then to Arizona, and finally to New Mexico. On January 13th, 2023, a task force arrested Dante just outside of Albuquerque and charged him with Eliza's murder. On the night of February 19th, 2023, a 27-year-old man named Raymond Oliveras and his fiancee Maria threw a get together at their newly purchased home in Compton. As the night winded down, the guests began leaving. Raymond and Maria walked some of their friends to their car. After doing so, they were walking back across Avalon Boulevard when the car came racing down the street and hit Raymond and Maria at 70 miles per hour. Raymond's legs were pinned under the car and he was dragged down the street. At the same time, another car was driving in the opposite direction and ran over the upper half of his body, splitting him in two. Maria was transported to the hospital, where she remained in a coma for weeks and required numerous surgeries on her arm, jaw, and legs. She now lives with chronic pain and PTSD. She stated, Raymond was a great guy, very hardworking, very loyal, very determined, and I don't have him no more. He's not with me. I go to sleep and I'm like, it's just a dream, and it's not. Raymond was a civil engineer and Maria is a school teacher. The two had been together since they were 14 years old and planned to get married that December and start a family. Police later arrested the driver, a 21-year-old man named Alan Herrera, and charged him with vehicular manslaughter. He had been arrested over a dozen times, and his mother had just bailed him out of jail 6 weeks prior to the accident. He was fleeing a nearby takeover that had been broken up by police when he hit the couple. Alan was to 5 years in prison. Raymond would have celebrated his 28th birthday a few months later on May 21st, but instead, his family hosted a memorial event where they shared memories of him and spoke about the dangers of street racing and takeovers.
This was really a bittersweet event in a lot of ways. Family and friends gathered together to share what they loved most about Raymond on what should have been a celebratory evening.
He is my whole life. Every day there was laughter, smiles, and fun. I miss him so much.
Maria Rivas Cruz should be planning her wedding to her high school sweetheart, Raymond Olivares. Tonight, they should also be celebrating his 28th birthday, but instead, family and friends are remembering his life.
We had so many plans. And he's not here anymore.
On the night of Friday, July 19th, 2024, there was a takeover at the intersection of 54th Street and Western Avenue. Among the attendees was a 15-year-old young man named Sergio Villa and his friend, another 15-year-old. Just after midnight, they were sitting in a car watching the show when three armed men approached them and demanded their jewelry, money, and other valuables. The men then ran to a black Honda. As they made their escape, one of the robbers aimed a gun at the teenagers and opened fire multiple times. Both were hit and driven to the hospital, where they were each listed in critical condition. A few hours later, Sergio Villa was pronounced dead. His friend went on to recover. In 2024, a joint task force arrested a 20-year-old man named Eric Quintana. Eric ran an Instagram page called Private Meets and had over 60,000 followers. Investigators believe he used the platform to blast out the locations of 16 takeovers, and at those events, there was violence, smash and grabs, robberies, and vehicle thefts. It's also alleged that he promoted the takeover on Crenshaw and Florence, where Eliza was killed. Eric was charged with 16 counts of conspiracy. Sergeant Arnold Castellanos of the LAPD Street Racing Task Force said this type of prosecution is the first of its kind and a necessary step. He stated, "Street takeovers have evolved into so much more than just doing donuts. Over time, car clubs have formed. These car clubs compete against each other to see who has the better drivers and can bully other drivers out of the pit. This has escalated tensions and has resulted in the car clubs acting like gangs." LA County District Attorney Nathan Hawkman said, "The charges against Eric are just the beginning of a broader effort to rein in street racers." Hawkman said that the takeovers attract a large and unruly crowds, which commit secondary crimes in the areas where they take place. He stated, "People like Quintana are the ones bringing together the street racers and spectators. They are as responsible and accountable for the crimes being committed as all the other participants in the conspiracy." Eric pled not guilty in early June of 2025 and is due back in court in July. Each count carries a minimum of 16 months in prison, and if convicted, he faces a minimum of 10 years. In September of 2024, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed legislation to impose stricter penalties and strengthen law enforcement's ability to combat takeovers. The new laws allow for suspension of participant licenses for at least 90 days and up to 6 months, as well as the impoundment of participants and spectator vehicles for an extended amount of time, in addition to possible jail time and fines. Newsom stated, "Takeovers are reckless, criminal activities that endanger our communities. We have seen too many people killed or hurt at these events. Today, we are sending a clear message to anyone considering participating in or attending them. Stricter penalties are in place." Politicians and law enforcement hope the new measures will put an end to takeovers, but most say that's just wishful thinking. Takeovers are bigger than ever, not only in LA, but in many cities across the nation. Places like Houston, Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis, Miami, Las Vegas, New York, and numerous others have saw a huge boom in takeovers. Many have asked why are takeovers so popular, and participants and spectators say it's the thrill and sense of community. They believe the media and law enforcement paint the events in a bad light, when in reality, most takeovers are peaceful and end on a good note. They see the events as an escape and a place where they could be free. And until something can replace that
I
feeling, the
didn't look.
takeovers are here to
Bathroom
stay.
center.
I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe.
That video is a little bit darker than what I thought it was gonna be. Blessings to everybody in their cars going down, 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 down. And y'all gotta be, man, y'all gotta be smart out here in y'all cars. Y'all gonna do right on the street, show out, and make sure the crowd, everybody like, you feel me? I don't know, like this shit got wild. I can't even say make sure the crowd gonna do what they want to do. They doing what they want to do. They in stove. All I can say is like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you, bro. And RP to them people that lost all their lives.